Good afternoon, everybody. This is Karen Lee Harrington with the Maine Health Data Organization, and I want to welcome you to our webinar on the Chapter 300 reporting requirements, which include both financial and organizational data. I know you're all very, very busy, so number one, on behalf of my team, appreciate you all taking time to be here. And two, we're going to try and start on time and end on time so you can get back to your other competing priorities. So with that said, I'm going to turn my video off because I'm having internet issues, but I did want to just say hello, and I'm going to walk you through the first couple of slides, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to finish up. There'll be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So with that, just a quick overview. We're going to talk about Chapter 300, the collection of financial data, the validation of organizational data, which is a new requirement, timing, next steps, and then questions. And I should say, maybe before I get into this slide, and Melissa, jump in if I'm wrong, and or Kate, but we are taping this webinar, and we will post it on our website. So people that you want in your organization that maybe were not able to attend to listen, they'll have that opportunity. And also, if you could make sure your phones are muted or your lines are muted, that would be great. And let's go ahead and get started. So for those of you that are not familiar with the Maine Health Data Organization, we are a state agency. We were created by the legislature in 1995 as an independent executive state agency that operates under the supervision of a multi-stakeholder board of directors, which includes representation from payers, hospitals, providers, home healthcare, consumers, employers, and government. We're defined in statute to, our purpose is to create and maintain a useful, objective, reliable, and comprehensive health information data warehouse that's used to improve the health of Maine citizens. And we're required to promote the transparency of the cost and quality of healthcare in the state of Maine by producing several online reports as well as written reports that we submit to the legislature. Next slide. So the Maine Health Data Organization, as part of our purpose, collects and validates all kinds of data. We're responsible for the storage of that data, the management of it, the public reporting, and then we are responsible to release that data to the broadest extent possible in compliance with our rules that govern the release of data. And the types of data sets that we collect include claims data from payers, hospital data from your colleagues for inpatient encounters as well as outpatient, hospital quality data, and we collect hospital financial and organizational data, which many of you are familiar with. And that data set is governed by Rule Chapter 300, and that's what we're going to spend time talking about today. For those of you that are not aware, the financial data that you send to us, we post on our website for the public, and you'll see the link if you are interested in looking at what we do with that data. And there are many entities within state government and outside of state government that rely on that data set. What we're going to be doing with the organizational data that we're going to talk about shortly is develop a provider directory. And this provider directory will be available to our users of our data. And it will support the management of healthcare provider information in a directory structure. It'll contain person provider identity information and information about relationships to facility providers and health systems. And I won't go on and read the rest, but this is, I think, going to be an important asset for many of our users that are interested in the relationships of providers to systems and hospitals, and then also understanding what providers are available within different hospitals, et cetera. So we're excited about the work that we've already started and how your validation of the organizational data will help improve the quality of that provider directory. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. Next slide. So just real quickly, there's a link at the top where you can find a copy of Rule Chapter 300. Again, for those of you that are not familiar. And sort of the two major components of this rule is the financial data that we collect from you all on an annual basis, and it's due no later than 6 months after your most recent fiscal year end. And then the new requirement is the organizational information that you'll be required to validate. And that will be due April 30th of each year, except for this first year. Because of the pandemic, we delayed the implementation of this requirement for a couple of years. And so now it's, fingers crossed, the worst is behind us, and we are looking to get this up and going. So the due dates for this first year are different, and we'll talk about more about that in a minute. So for the submission of the hospital financial data to MHDO, there are no changes in how the unconsolidated financial data is reported to MHDO. You're going to use the MHDO hospital data portal and continue to submit the data that you do in terms of financial statements and the template. What's new as it relates to the financial data is reporting of consolidated financial data, in addition to the unconsolidated reporting. And we're going to roll this new requirement out, starting with the 4 health systems in Maine. And if you are a hospital or a parent that is interested in including your consolidated financial data in addition to your unconsolidated, you are more than welcome to do that. And if that is the case, we're just going to have you reach out to Deborah Dodge, and I think Deborah's contact information is at the end of this slide presentation, and I know most of you have it anyways, but reach out to her and she'll talk to you about how to go about doing that. You'll be using the same MHDO hospital data portal, but we just need to give you a code for the consolidated data. Okay, next slide. So the requirement in Chapter 300 that is new is the validation of organizational data. And MHDO will pre-populate the baseline organizational information in our hospital data portal with existing data. The original requirement was by January 31st of 2020. Again, we delayed that due to the pandemic. So we have now updated that information, and we're asking the health systems and hospitals to review that and update it for this first year by June 30th. And then going forward, we will make any updates to it by January 31st of 2020 that we're aware of. And then we're asking you all, the rule requires that it be updated or validated by April 30th of each year. Next slide. The data elements that we're asking you to validate. Now remember, we are pre-populating this information, so hopefully it'll reduce the administrative burden for you. But we are asking you to validate that we've got it right. And where we're getting these data points are from data submissions to us from other sources. So it might be the claims data, it might be the hospital data, where we're pulling these data elements from and putting it into a structure so that you can validate. And at this point, I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to our vendor, Human Service Research Institute, specifically Melissa Hillmeyer, who's going to walk you through the next set of slides that really gets into how you're going to go into the portal and how you'll go about making updates as needed. And then at the end, I'll come back and we'll take any questions, and then we'll wrap things up. So with that, Melissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Karen Lee. So many of you are existing users of the MHDO Hospital Data Portal, and these browser requirements for accessing the portal are just standard requirements that we wanted to just pop on screen so that you're aware of them, though nothing new has changed from an accessibility for accessing the portal. So the features and functionalities for the organization data in the MHDO Hospital Data Portal are consistent, no matter if you're a health system, a parent, or a hospital user. So this table just outlines the responsibilities of each of the entity types. Health systems and parent entities can review, edit, and validate everything that is affiliated with the system, and they must confirm the relationships among subsystems and hospitals. Health systems and parent entities are also responsible for reviewing, editing, and validating the organizational information for practices that are unaffiliated with hospitals, including the physicians that are employed or affiliated with those entities. It's important to note that practices affiliated or unaffiliated with a health system or hospital need to be individually reviewed within the portal, as well as edited, verified, or removed individually. Meanwhile, hospitals are responsible for validating their baseline organizational information along with that of the affiliated practices and the physicians that are employed or affiliated with those practices. This is the organizational data homepage, and a single user can be associated with more than one organization in the MHDO Hospital Data Portal. So if your user account is associated with more than one organization, all organizations will be displayed on screen, and you can switch the organization you're viewing by clicking on the organization's name from this homepage. So in this example, Calais Community Hospital is selected, and if a user wanted to go ahead and see the information associated with Down East Community Hospital, they would simply click on that link and be directed to their information. If a user wants to go ahead and return to the home page for the hospital data portal, they would simply click on the MHDO logo here in the upper left-hand corner, or on this home hospital data portal link in the left navigation. This is a screen that a user will see if they're associated with one entity or a single health system or parent entity. So upon logging into the portal, a user will see the welcome screen with organizational data in the left navigation, and clicking on this link for organizational data brings users to the main page that outlines the relationships of health systems with subsystems, parent entities, hospitals, and or practices. This is the screen that outlines the relationships among entities, and I realize that it might be small on screen, but once you log into the portal later on, it'll be more visible. So to distinguish the relationships among entities, the list of entities is indented, and there's also a plus or minus sign that appears next to an entity's name to expand or collapse any affiliated entities. So clicking on the plus or minus sign next to an entity's name shows or hides any affiliated practices. And if a plus or minus sign does not exist next to an entity's name, then there's no affiliated practices. Likewise, there are links to collapse all and expand all at the top of the page. And this acts the same way as using the plus or minus signs. It just automatically shows or hides all of them so that you don't have to manually click upon each entity. At the top of the page, users may use the drop downs to sort by year and status to view entities that have validated their information and are compliant in a selected year, or to review which entities need their information verified and are not currently compliant. If entities are incorrectly associated with one another, please go ahead and contact the MHDO help desk so that the relationship can be correctly assigned. To begin the review and verification, simply click on Review in this Actions column, and this will bring users to an entity's summary page. Here you'll see breadcrumbs at the top of the screen which are a text path indicating your location in the portal. These breadcrumbs are also helpful because they act as a visual confirmation of the entity that's being reviewed and its affiliated relationships. There's a block of information also at the top of the page that contains notifications. And so this indicates if verification is required, as well as the date and timestamp that the information was last updated or verified and by whom. Baseline organizational information is displayed for each entity, including the entity name, the billing MPIs, the primary taxonomy for each entity, the address, phone number, fax number, website, and whether the entity is on Compare Maine, the state of Maine's healthcare transparency website. In addition to viewing the information on the summary page, users may scroll down to see practices affiliated with the hospital, and they simply clicking on review here will allow you to see the organizational information for each of those entities, as well as the physicians that are employed or affiliated with those entities. Health systems and parent entities may have practices that are associated with them, but not directly affiliated with another entity. So when this occurs, unaffiliated practices are displayed on the summary page, and users can simply scroll down to see them. Clicking on Edit on the top right of the summary page allows a user to make changes to a health system, parent entity, or hospital's information. Upon doing so, this form will appear, and again, I realize it may be small on screen for you. And except for the billing NPIs, users can edit most of the entity's information using the text fields, as well as the dropdown indicating whether or not the entity is on Compare Maine. Clicking Save will submit the information, or users may also click Cancel and return to the previous screen. Once the information is saved, the notification at the top of that summary page will be updated to reflect the date and time the information was updated and by which user. So if there are multiple users within your organization that are updating the organizational information, you'll be able to see who was in there and last made that change. To add a billing NPI associated with an entity, click on the Add NPI link on the summary page. Upon doing so, you'll be prompted to enter the unique 10-digit MPI code into this text field, and then use the dropdown to select the primary taxonomy associated with the MPI. And then you can save the change, click Save, and the changes will be updated, or again, click Cancel to return to the previous screen. There's a link here that says View Codes by NUCC. This allows users to view a PDF to look up the primary National Uniform Claim Committee healthcare provider taxonomy codes, which are used by hospitals, practices, and employed or affiliated physicians. Users are unable to directly edit an MPI of an existing entity. So if an MPI is incorrect, users must return to the summary page, delete the MPI, and then go ahead and add the correct MPI in. So if there is an MPI that is incorrect, simply click on this delete next to the MPI, and then this pop-up on the bottom will appear. Click yes to confirm that you do in fact want to delete that MPI, or no to return back to the summary page. Returning to the summary page, clicking on the link Add a Practice will add a practice for an affiliated or unaffiliated practice. The same process is used to add both affiliated and unaffiliated practices. However, again, just to reiterate, unaffiliated practices can only be added by a health system or a parent entity. This form is a replica of the one that was already shown to edit the organizational information and is used to go ahead and add a practice. So again, utilizing the text fields and the drop downs to complete all the required information to add a practice. Again, that information from an organizational baseline is the practice name, the billing NPI, the primary taxonomy, the address. And I wanted to note that for the zip code, regardless of how many digits are within the zip code, only 5 digits, the first 5 will be displayed on that summary page. And then there's the phone, fax, website, and again, whether or not that entity is on Compare Maine. Clicking Save again will go ahead and add the practice to the list of affiliated or unaffiliated practices, and clicking Cancel returns you back to the previous screen. Back on the summary page, users can go ahead and click on Delete in that Actions column to remove the practice and its association with the entity. Doing so will bring the user to this particular screen. Here you can go ahead and follow the screen prompts to select the reason for removing the practice. So if the practice's relationship is not correct, users are asked to contact the MHDO help desk rather than deleting the practice. Again, this is a really critical piece of info, so I'm just going to repeat that one more time. If the practice's relationship is not correct, please go ahead and contact the MHDO help desk rather than deleting the practice. If the practice is closed, simply click on this link here, and then users are required to provide the date that the practice closed along with the reason for the closure. And if the practice was accidentally added, because sometimes that happens to all of us, then you can just go ahead and confirm before removing that practice. So going back to the organization summary page, users will see the physicians employed or affiliated with a hospital. Clicking on Edit allows the users to go ahead and edit the physician's name, including the prefix, first name, middle name or middle initial, last name and suffix, along with the rendering MPI for the physician, credentials, primary taxonomy, as well as the start and end date with an entity. Upon clicking Edit, you can go ahead and follow the screen prompts to select whether you would like to edit the start or end date or the physician details. Editing the start or end date takes the users to this screen. If a physician is employed or affiliated with multiple hospitals or practices, the start and end date is specific to and unique to each entity. So the format for the start and end date is month, day, and year. Since physicians can be employed or affiliated with multiple hospitals or practices, the MHDO hospital data portal has a separate backend repository that really acts as the sole source of information to ensure that the same physician isn't added multiple times, but just with different spellings of their name. So to this point, when a user goes ahead and clicks on, I want to edit physician details, the updates will not be immediately updated. Instead, those edits are sent to the MHDO help desk for review, confirmation, and then updating. So you won't immediately see if you change a physician's name, for example, from James to Jim and click Save, you won't immediately see those changes. Instead, that particular change will be flagged, go to the MHDO help desk for review, and then it will be updated at a later time. On the organization summary page, a user has a choice of adding physicians one at a time or performing a bulk import when there are several to be added. Clicking on the Add Physician link allows users to manually add each physician individually. The first step to adding a physician is to enter the unique 10-digit rendering MPI. And then upon clicking Submit, users may see this screen. So again, since the MHDO hospital data portal has that backend repository that does act as the true source of the physician information, if a user enters an MPI that already exists, the physician will appear like it is on screen, and the user can go ahead and modify the start and end dates that are unique to that specific entity, again in month, day, year format. If a user enters an MPI that does not exist, this particular screen appears, and clicking on Complete These Details allows users to enter their physician's details using the same form that was previously shown. And then clicking on Save or Submit adds them to the list of employed or affiliated physicians, and Cancel again just returns them to the summary page. Rather than manually adding or editing each physician that's employed or affiliated with a hospital or practice, you also have the option to bulk import physicians from the summary page, which is this particular link, clicking on that will begin an automated process. So as soon as that's clicked, you're taken to this particular page. So to ensure success and to really save time, it's important to follow the directions that are outlined on this particular page. So you begin by selecting the link, download the template, go ahead and download that. It will open up a Microsoft Excel CSV spreadsheet. You can go ahead and use the template to add the physician's MPIs and start dates in the appropriate columns in the spreadsheet. Next, once that's done, you can go ahead and copy the physician's information from the spreadsheet and then paste that information directly into this text area on screen, and then go ahead and click import. Upon clicking import, the results are shown that indicate if the physician was successfully found already and is added into the MHDO hospital database on the back end, or if the physician was not found and needs to be added manually. So for example, here this physician was found upon bulk import, but this MPI was not found. And so there's a link to go ahead and add manually. In addition to seeing these results on screen, the bulk import results are also emailed to the user's email address for both convenience and confirmation. Clicking on Add Manually will open up a new browser window where physician details can be added, and that follows the same process as manually adding physicians. So again, once you go ahead and add in those physicians, you'll receive a confirmation that that information has been updated for the employed or affiliated physicians. Upon reviewing the accuracy of the entity's information, including the employed or affiliated physicians, you can go ahead and click the verify link to confirm the accuracy of the entity's information. Again, that's the baseline organizational information that you see here on screen, along with the employed or affiliated physicians. Upon clicking that button, a browser window on screen prompt appears to just say, are you sure that this information is correct? And then once verified, the notification at the top of the page is updated to reflect, again, the date and the time that the information was verified and by whom. And then at that point, the health system, parent entity, or hospital's status will be changed from non-compliant to compliant. I know that we've covered a lot of information during these screenshots and sort of outlining the steps involved for reviewing, editing, and validating the information. So while we've done our best to make the system as user intuitive as possible, I understand that it can also be overwhelming to try and remember all of it. And so for that reasons, we've also created a user manual that really details all the steps along with the screenshots, and it's available directly in the portal once you log in, and it's also available on the MHDO website. In terms of next steps, number one, please go ahead and log into the MHDO hospital data portal and confirm that you can see organization data in the left side navigation. We'll be turning that on shortly after today's webinar, and then you can go ahead and again, just log in to confirm that you can see it. If you'd like to access the recording from today's webinar, or the Chapter 300 user manual, you can also visit the MHDO website. That link is on screen here. And then lastly, health systems, parent entities, and hospitals shall review, update, and validate their organizational information by Thursday, June 30th, 2022, which seems like a long way away, but we all know how amazing summers in Maine are. So we do encourage you to begin that validation process sooner than later. And again, please go ahead and contact the MHDO help desk with any questions regarding data submissions. The MHDO help desk is available for troubleshooting and to answer questions. Support is available by phone and email during regular business hours, Monday through Friday. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Karen Lee.
So thank you, Melissa. Yes, a lot of information. So we've got one question in the chat about the feature for the bulk import of the physicians. And does that only work to update existing physicians?
You can also use the bulk import feature can also be used to add new physicians.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got a lot of folks on the call, and I think it might be easier if there are questions to put the questions in the chat, and I should have mentioned that in the beginning. But I'm also happy to try and manage people asking questions by unmuting their lines. So, and maybe to do that, if people could raise their hands, and I'll kind of work through the list. Or again, please feel free to put a quick message in the chat. So, any questions? I'm not seeing any hands raised. So while we're giving folks a second, just to reiterate, we delayed the implementation of this for a few years. We will get on a cycle after this first year based on the requirements in the rule, where January, by the end of January, we'll have all of our updates in the portal. And then by the end of April, the expectation is that the hospitals and systems will have done their validation. This first year, we are asking that by June 30th, the validation occurs and any updates that are needed are made. If you have questions throughout this process, do not hesitate to reach out to the help desk. We want to help you through this process. We've put a lot of work into creating this online portal that would allow us to pre-populate the information to try and minimize the administrative burden for you all. So if, as you start working with this tool, there are features that are not either as intuitive, or you're having issues with, or you think we can do better, please let us know. Our commitment is to try and, take feedback and make things better, because we know you have a lot of other competing priorities. So we appreciate your attention to these requirements. And again, we are available to help support you as you start to work your way through this process. And I'm going to take one last look at whether or not we have any questions. And I don't see anything. So Melissa, unless you have anything else, I think we can end this discussion with, again, a big thank you, and do not hesitate to contact us as you start this process. And with that, I think we're done. So thank you, everybody.